Hello, my crafty friends. It's Michelle, the Southern Shell, and I am here as the guest host for the Calendar Girls collaboration. Tiffany with Simply Blessed Crafts reached out to me and asked if I would guest host this month along with Jetta from Craft Along with Jay. This is a monthly collab that is put out once a month on the 16th. I hope you all enjoy this. We are supposed to use calendars to create our crafts with this calendar girl. And for the month of August, our theme was apples. Well, none of my calendars had any apples in them, so I had to get really creative here. So here you see I have a tissue roll, and what I did is I cut just about 1.5 inches off the top, and then I'm hot gluing some yarn around the tip of that. When I get that glued down, I'm going to go ahead and take some more of that yarn and I'm going to wrap it in the tube around the outside, up and in and down and out. And I'm going to do this all the way around this tissue tube like this. I put the little yarn across the top of that because apples are not shaped round. They have a thicker top base than they do a bottom base. So I wanted to make sure that I had that shape that I wanted for an apple. Since I used the tissue rolls, it was nice and wide on the inside. So what I did here is I just add some hot glue and I just wrapped that yarn around the inside of that tissue holder with the yarn. Now here are some of the calendars that I had, and this one is Gardens from 2024, and I thought about this particular picture here to help with my apple stems. So I went ahead and first of all pulled out the staples for this calendar so that I could pull them apart and cut each page as I needed them. And so there's the one I'm going to use. I actually went ahead and scanned that in on my copier and printed it out to the size I needed on regular copy paper. I knew that the regular copy paper would be the right thickness to roll up and create a stem out of, whereas the calendar sheet is really thick and glossy, and it would really actually be a very thick stem for my apple. And so I really wanted to make sure I had better paper for that. So I took this other page here and I printed it out right next to each other. That was I think this one was June's, and I just had it duplicated and did them both on the same side and then glued it together. For the stems, I'm just going to put some Mod Podge on the back of my paper here, and I'm just going to spread that around, and then I'm going to take this and I'm going to roll these up into apple stems, and this is what's going to be stuck down into the top of my apples. This isn't very difficult to do, and I didn't roll it even, you can see that, but that is perfectly fine. The second one I'm rolling a little tighter because this one's going to be for the smaller apple that I created. I created two of them. That one with the big one in that Merlot color, and then I actually did one in a red color that was smaller. And so I went ahead and used my Mod Podge and went over the outside of these as well to give them a nice coat, nice and firm. It's going to firm up these pages to be stems so that I don't have to worry about that. Now the big one there is going to go on that big apple, and that little one I'm going to fold right in half, and that's going to stuff right on down into the little one. Now you see it has the big hole in there, so I went ahead and folded the stem in half first, and then I went ahead and took my yarn and wrapped it around my stem. Once I got it nice and thick around there and so that it would stick down in that apple, I went ahead and used my hot glue around the inside edge, and then I just plopped that little yarn wrapped calendar piece right on down in there to create that tiny little apple. I did the same type of thing for my larger one. I put it in there, seeing where the top was going to come out of the apple, and then wrapped from there on down and then back up until I got the thickness I needed to fill the core of that apple up. Once again, I used hot glue, put it on there and just tapped it right on down with my fingers. It was not hard. Once I got that all on there, I put the hot glue on, and now I had to be careful because now it was hot. The second page, like I said, I'm going to go ahead and Mod Podge them together. Just going to spread that out, rub it down, and then I put some on each side and let it dry. I used my white pen here to trace out little leaves, and I am going to now cut these calendar pages out to become leaves for my apple. This is still a little damp from the Mod Podge, which makes it really easy to actually fold and shape this paper at this particular point in time. So you see here, now I can just fold it on in there and give it some pinches and some squeezes to make it look like a leaf that's going to pop right on out of that apple. Now I wanted bigger leaves for the larger apple, so I just went in and just hand cut a couple of bigger pieces and just shaped that the same way I did the smaller ones. I did try to use the smaller ones on there, but when I held it up, it just didn't look right. So now hot glue right on the top of that, and we're going to plop that leaf right on in there, and we're going to move to the other side and add a second one right on down there. And I am going to just adjust those just a little bit, and look at how stinking cute that turned out. So here's the smaller ones. I'm going to go ahead and pop a couple on here, and you see it covers up some of that yarn on the top, which is perfectly fine. And there you have 2 apples. Now I went ahead and pinched and twisted the stem of the tall one just a little bit and just adjusted those leaves a little bit more. They turned out cute. Like I mentioned earlier, this is the Calendar Girl collaboration with our host, Tiffany with Simply Blessed Crafts, and Jette with Craft Along with Jay. The guest host this month is me, Michelle, the Southern Shell. Guys, if you don't know these ladies, please check out their channels. I'll leave them in the description box below, along with a playlist that has every video that is joining the collab this month. You can play all and view them all there, or go individually one by one to the channel. We try to make it easy where you can just play all for you. So, apples. Air dry clay. You've seen me get out that Crayola modeling Model Magic clay, and I made all of these little tiny apples. My husband said they look like marshmallows. I said, no, take a look at this. Those are little apples. And I'm like, well, you know, they do need some paint on them. So I dug out some old acrylics that I've had around here because I knew I wouldn't need too much for these little guys. So I got out some of my yellow ochre, some vermilion, some, I think that was the grass green, and some Merlot. And I just went ahead and just painted each of these apples, and I did not change my paintbrush. I did not clean it. I just went in and started with my lighter color and moved along, switching as I used up all of my green. I went into the yellow ochre, and then I went into the vermilion, and look at those. Oh my gosh, I cannot believe how realistic they look. Oh, they turned out so cool. So they needed some leaves and they needed a stem. So let me show you what I'm going to do here. I got some more of that clay out, and I took my alcohol ink in Clover, and I added some alcohol ink to that little blob of clay, and I used my gloves because alcohol ink stains, and it needed more. Usually it's very intense with the color, but I had a lot of clay in my hand, and I did not need this much clay for the itty bitty leaves that I was going to make. So once I got that done, I'm rolling up little tiny balls. You can see that there, and then using my fingernail to cut it in half. And then I can take those little pieces and lay it out and make a leaf. I'm going to show you here. I've got a little thumbtack. I'm going to stick an apple on the end of it, just right there. I'm going to come in, and I've got some 20 gauge wire that I use in my jewelry making, and I'm going to pick up that little ball and take the back of my nail and push it down. And now I've got a leaf. So I'm going to take some E6000 because I want these to stay on there. They're still wet, they will dry, and they will be stuck. But in the meantime, I don't want them falling off. This is little tiny tedious work. So I went ahead and stuck my first leaf on there, and then I got another tiny little guy and stuck it on there. And then I actually had some E6000 on the end of my little stem there and stuck it right on in that hole of the apple at the top that I created. Look at how cute. Oh, so I did all of those. Yes, I did all of them. This was another calendar page that I actually scanned and printed on my rice paper. I'm going to use my Mod Podge on the back of this and spread it all out. I wanted to go ahead and make two of them as a matching set. The little wood pieces is that hanging tray, hanging shelf from Dollar Tree, so it came with both pieces in it, came with the hanging twine and the rings. I just needed the boards, so I'm going to go ahead and just Mod Podge that little piece right on down to the center there, and look, what a mess. Oh, that's what you get with an inkjet and Mod Podge. But I wanted it to be a little messy. I painted the edges of those with some Merlot and some moss, and then I'm coming back in with Tor sheets. I use scraps of everything, and this was an old sheet set, and I just had cut strips down, making a wreath at one time, and this was just strips of it left that I didn't use for that particular wreath. And so I'm like, this would be perfect. Let's go ahead and get it poked in here, and we're going to use this as just a little decor on this little hanging shelf here. We're going to use my scissors, and I'm going to come in through the back and just poke that on through there, and then I can grab it at the front and pull it in and tie a knot. It did take a little finagling because it is not necessarily a perfect hole to stick a little bit of fabric through, but it worked just fine. So I just tied a knot in the top of that and pushed it down up against that wood and then trimmed it off, and I did another piece on the top. So the rest of this calendar piece here, this page that I had scanned in and used, I'm using the calendar part right here, and I cut it into 1/4-inch strips. Now I'm taking the rest of that tissue holder and cutting about 1/4-inch strips on there as well. Now I'm going to measure off and just cut a little piece out of 2 of those. I'm going to cut out of one, you can see right there, and then I'm going to use that to measure and cut a piece out of a second one so that those 2 will have the same width. And then I'm going to just fold down little pieces on that to make it a spot where I can glue it onto some of that calendar page. Now the next piece, I want it to be smaller. I'm going to make an apple basket. And if you look at little apple baskets, the tops are wider than the bottoms. And so I made the bottom a little shorter, did the same little cup on there, and then I'm going to hot glue them down onto that calendar page. I'm going to do the same for the top, just about an inch, maybe 1.5 inches over the top of the bottom one I put on there. Once that's on there, I'm just going to cut it out. And you see there, I'm going to trim up the edges, and now I just have this funny looking toilet paper holder here, this toilet paper tube. I am going to now weave a basket. Now I'm going to take my hot glue, and I'm just going to lay some strips on the back right down there, and I want to make sure that I get 4 across there evenly. And when I did that, my glue needed a little extra hit of heat there. I brought it to the front and I folded it up. So now I've got the bottom laid out and I've got it folded up, and I'm going to come in and add a little bit of hot glue on the front of that as I fold up and over the front of that basket. Now I'm going to go ahead and tear off the side and fold that down and glue it, and I'll do it on the other side as well. And then I'm going to come right on in and I'm going to glue those tops down on the top. I'm just going to cut it off and fold it over so that it will have a nice little hook on the top of that basket right there. You see, I'm just straightening it out, making sure they're even. Lay some glue and pop it on down. And then I'm going to come in and just cut across the top of that and fold it down and glue it down. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to look at the bottom, and I am going to weave a smaller piece in and out, and then it's going to come up, and I'm going to glue it up on the edge now. Same way I did the other, just put a little dab of glue down and fold the top, and then I pulled it through the other side until it was nice and taut, and then hot glued the other side as well, same way. And then, trim it off, fold it over, glue it down. Once I have the basics on there like that, I'm going to come in and I'm going to have another long piece and weave another piece across the bottom. I am going to put those apples in this basket, so I don't want them to fall out. So I needed to come in and actually glue them down, making sure that the holes in the bottom of the basket were not too big for the apples to sit in. I'm going to go ahead and do another across the center of my basket now, across the center front. I'm going to take another long piece of my calendar and I'm going to weave it right on in and out, and pull it around to the back and glue that down onto the back of my basket, which you're not going to see because it's going to be glued onto our little board there. Once it's all down, I make sure that it is even across the front and that it is all stabilized. Now I want to add some more, another piece across the top covering that toilet tissue roll, and then I'm going to do another one on the bottom to cover the bottom roll there as well. So now that all the pieces that you are seeing are the pieces of the calendar page that I actually cut and trimmed out. So once I get that hot glued down there, the basket is ready to go on the front of my little picture here. A little hot glue across the backs of those, and that will sit right down on front in the middle underneath that bicycle. I love the baskets on the bike. I was trying to figure out how I could actually put apples in them. I did cut some of my apples in half and try to lay them on top there. It just didn't look right. So we're just going to stick with the baskets here on the front, in front of the bicycles. I'm going to pour my apples into my little apple basket. And once I get those in there, I am going to just take a few of those that are on the top. I don't want them all glued in there, but I don't want them falling out either. So you'll see here what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to take a couple of those apples out and I'm going to hot glue them in place, the ones on the top. So I can just take a little bit of hot glue, dab it on there, and then stick it down where it's actually touching the basket or the back of the board. And I'm just shaking them down. I want them to lay in there natural, like you were out apple picking and they're in your basket there. And so that's how I'm doing this. I'm just putting them in the basket, letting them fall wherever they may, just not worrying about it and laying it all in there nicely. Then I turn it up. What did I lose? Go back in, glue another one down, and then I can tip it upside down again. Nothing's falling out. Perfect. I'm going to do the same thing on the second basket. I'm going to take a couple off the top, and then I'm just going to add some glue, and I'm going to pop the apple right back into the space. And when that is glued on there with that little dab of hot glue, it will hold all the other apples in place. You don't have to worry about gluing them all. Just a couple strategically glued ones on top will be fine. And so there you have it. Now I can come in and I can tip this one upside down and not lose any apples as well. I wanted something along the bottom, so I had a few of these apples left, so I just grabbed some and hot glued them around the bottom of the basket onto my board to make it look like the apples have spilled over, because you don't always make them in the basket when you're doing some apple picking. My baskets are not the same height, and it's just, you know what, it's okay. When you go out apple picking, there are all kinds of things out there that you can pick your apples and put into, and I just think these turned out adorable. Guys, which one's your favorite? Do you like the yarn apples, or do you like this little page with the bicycles? So there you have it, my friends. There is my apples in their little apple basket. And here are my yarn apples with the calendar stems and leaves. And there's the other one. And I wanted them to be very blotchy with that paint because I've got the shredded twine in there. And I just thought that was perfect for the apples. Guys, tell me what you think. Which one is your favorite? Do you like the Merlot frame there, or do you prefer the green one over here, the sage? No, that's moss. Or do you like the little yarn apples? Those turned out really cute as well. I really appreciate you spending time with me. Time is precious today, and taking time out of your day to spend with me means the world. If you've not subscribed, I hope you will consider doing so now by hitting that subscribe button. If you want to know when I've uploaded my next video, hit that bell notification. YouTube should notify you when my next video has gone live. As always, guys, stay safe, God bless, and bye for now.